Good morning. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of December 15th, 2021. Let the record show all commissioners are present. First item would be the order of business. Mr. Hadley, is there any changes or corrections to the order of business?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission. No, there is not.
Okay, hearing no changes, commissioners, I'd look for a motion to approve the order of business. Motion by Commissioner Dukart.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bullinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The order of business is approved. Item 2 on our agenda this morning is the minutes of the previous session from November 17, 2021. Any corrections or changes to those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Bullinger.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bush. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Our first action item this morning is final plat. This is to consider a request for a preliminary/final plat FLP-009-2021 for the replat of lots 3 through 8, block 1 of lots 6 through 11, block 2 of Fisher's East Edition, which includes the vacation of a portion of 21st Avenue East and some of the existing easements to create Fisher's Third City East Edition. 2 lots located in the southeast quarter, Section 2, Township 139 North, Range 96 West. The proposed replat is located on a vacant lot adjoining 21st Avenue East and East Villard Street within the city of Dickinson, Stark County. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, there's a couple copies of the revised plat that the applicant, if you want to look at it and pass it down, make sure everybody sees it. It was in your packet as well. This replat is going to allow a new proposed commercial development to come to town. It would not fit in this particular site, so that's why the replat was requested. There's a number of infrastructure issues that we've worked through with the applicant and their representative, and I believe we have a complete concurrence on the changes in the plat that you have before you. There's a updated development agreement that's also been submitted, and it will be reviewed by engineering and planning by the city commission level. It basically reinforces the concerns and the conditions in the staff review. With that, I'd probably like to call up the applicant's representative just to kind of go over some of the changes and if they have that concurrence that I believe we have.
Morning, Mr. Schrank.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering, representing the applicant for this replat. As indicated, this is a replat of an area in Fisher's City East Edition. This is over by Midwest Doors along 21st Avenue East. This replat combines 12 existing lots into 2. One being a larger lot that would accommodate that facility that Mr. Hadley referenced, and a second about 1.4 acre lot that would be there for future development. It does vacate about 550 feet of right-of-way of 21st Avenue East. As part of that vacation, we've added about 1/10 of an acre of right-of-way to create a cul-de-sac for turnaround for vehicles and emergency access. And that's right at the southeast corner of Lot 1 there. We've also added a drainage and sewer easement and a water easement in discussions with staff for future infrastructure to go in place. We did meet with staff last week and had a very good discussion regarding the infrastructure in this area. This road has been a challenge for the city for quite some time. It was never built at the time this was platted. It's not built to this day. Part of it's gravelled, but there's really a lot of infrastructure that's not in place today. We feel this plat really helps that. Like I say, it reduces the right-of-way by 550 feet. So that's a lot less water, sewer, streets that are needed to serve this area at a lot less cost to construct that infrastructure. We met with staff. We went through the different, public infrastructure that's going to be required to serve this development in the surrounding area. First of all, the water we did add, and that is the change that was made to the plat, is a 20-foot water easement along the west side of Lot 2, and then it connects to the 21st Avenue right-of-way between Lot 1 and 2. That'll allow for a water main, a public water main, to be constructed from East Villard Street into the 21st Avenue East right-of-way. And that water main could be used to serve Lot 1 and 2, and at some point in the future, that could be extended north to East Villard Street to serve any remaining undeveloped lots along 21st Avenue East. So as part of that development agreement, this owner has agreed that they would install the water main within this site, and that could be done by someone else in the future in 21st Avenue East. Sanitary sewer is available to these lots already on the west side of lots 1 and 2. There's an existing sanitary sewer line that runs through that valley on the west side of this, and that drainage on the west side of this property. And that could be used for service to lots 1 and 2. However, for future development, a sewer would be needed to serve the lots along 21st Avenue East in the existing 21st Avenue East right-of-way. So we have provided a sanitary sewer easement along the property line of lots 1 and 2, so that future sewer could connect through this property at some point when those lots are developed. We have agreed, or the owner has agreed, that they will grade and gravel the portion of 21st Avenue East abutting lots 1 and 2. That would provide access into this area. There is also access to lot 2 from East Villard Street, which would be the main access for that lot. We've also agreed in the development agreement that there is a small portion of 21st Avenue East that is not vacated by this plat adjacent to the existing lot 12. The owner has agreed in the development agreement that they would construct a private access and maintain a private access within that right-of-way rather than going through a full public street that would be maintained by the city. This replat essentially is coming forward to allow for the commercial facility that Mr. Hadley alluded to within Lot 2. It would be an agricultural feed facility that I think would be a great asset to this area, and it really allows that project to keep moving forward. And with that, I'd open it up to any questions you may have.
So block 1, or the lot 2, I mean, that user's not going to use the 21st Avenue East Dirt Road, as I'll call it, out to the business loop, ever?
I wouldn't say ever. They do want to use East Villard Street as their main access for trucks and drop-offs and things like that. If that road gets built and is a decent road, they may use it for a second access in the future. But the intention, at least initially, is that East Villard Street would be their main access. And we haven't gotten through the full layout and plans of that site yet to see what exactly that looks like. We kind of needed to get through this process before we get too far into the planning and design of that facility.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Schrank?
Mr. Schrank, just for clarification, there is going to be access provided to that gentleman on the east side that has a shop with the existing, on what's left of the public right-of-way used privately.
Correct. We would be, in our development agreement, we've added wording that within the existing right-of-way adjacent to, it would be Lot 12 that Mr. Hadley's referring to, at the southeast corner, just southeast of this plat. In the development agreement, we've agreed to provide a private access within that existing right-of-way that would be maintained by this developer. So there would be access in there, and they indicated they'd be fine with him using that access.
Thank you.
Walter, are there any plans for 21st Avenue East to be actual paved city street or not?
I'm sorry.
For 21st Avenue East, are there any plans is that not a city street, correct?
It is a
It's
city street.
gravel.
I think I'd maybe let Loretta, Mr. Marshak, address. It was a public road and a public project that we're planning, and I think it's been put on the table a while ago.
That is correct. It is tabled on our capital improvement project list, and with this project, I'm not sure that we would move forward at this time unless there was some additional interest by the property owners in that location.
So as those lots 2, 3, 4, 5 develop, who takes care of that road and who's gonna, will that eventually have to go to pavement?
At this time, no, the property owners would be maintaining those as they do now.
We're creating another Dickinson Ready Mix issue. A gravel road to a commercial site that nobody,
The intent with this new site, Commissioner Frederick, would be the access from the south. And then as we move forward with some of the discussions about other ways to finance these kinds of projects with our policy, we could hopefully be able to tackle this project, unless there's some other desire to move forward with it. on
Mr.
the
President?
city's part.
yes, Mr. Schreiber.
That is one item we talked thoroughly about with staff, and it's a challenging item. It's an existing issue today, and like we said, this greatly reduces that issue. We now have, maybe 4 lots that are adjacent to that road instead of 12 or 14. We talked a lot about special assessment. I think that's maybe the fairest way, so that all of these owners can participate in that cost. To tie any sort of pavement to this project is an astronomical cost to serve 2 properties when they already have infrastructure for these 2 properties, other than a paved road in front of Lot 1. If we pave that road, you then need to put in the water, because you'd have to have that in prior to the pavement, as well as the sewer. Those need to come all the way from the business loop. So that project cost would be infeasible to serve 1 or 2 properties. That benefits adjacent property as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, those are undeveloped properties that would now be able to turn around, construct on those lots at this developer's cost if he was required to pay for that. So we talked a lot about special assessment. I think that's probably the fairest way. If a district and adequate boundaries and costs can be come up with on that, that would probably be the fairest way to get that infrastructure completed in the future.
I mean, the only issue with that, Mr. that we're gonna get somebody to protest it. Probably this is big lot 2, which will be more than 50%, I'm guessing, of the rest of the project, and they're gonna protest it out, and then
And
we'll have to pay for it.
And Mr. President, I think at that point, you look at redistricting this area and assessment. Lot 2 maybe doesn't get access off of that road and doesn't need that road, doesn't need the water, doesn't need the sewer. At that point, maybe you look at removing them from the assessment and moving forward with the remaining lots. It could be a challenge, I don't disagree. There's a lot of people who have been on this road for quite some time, but I don't know how else you do it without an assessment to make it fair to everyone that's benefiting from that infrastructure.
And if I'm right, isn't most of the remaining lots owned by 1 or 2 people also? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I believe so.
So in other words, we're gonna pay for it. Are we ready to do that?
It has been on the CIP list. So if we want to remove it from being tabled and look at that as a way to move forward, I mean, it's always an option.
I don't know.
And Mr. President, if I may, again, if we do not approve this plat today, your payment doubles essentially. You've got to now come all the way from East Villard Street to the business loop instead of what is half if this is approved today. And special assessment doesn't necessarily mean, there could be a method to recoup that. Obviously, you could have a 10-year assessment or something like that where the city would have to initially take on that debt, but there would be a repayment method for some or all or whatever is decided as part of that special assessment. So we feel that this helps the issue that's there today. I think not moving forward with it is going to it's going to just sustain the issue that's out there today. So we really think it is a benefit to the city and this developer.
And just to remind you, there are portions of the utility project, if we move forward as a special assessment, that they can't protest out. So there would be some cost share. if we would go forward that route. It wouldn't all be on the city.
Well, to me, since this benefits both the previous Fishers City East edition and this new edition, I mean, are you guys agreeable to, that if we do put this road in, that we would be able to special assess you guys?
Yes, with the caveat that we don't know what that assessment is today.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be what it is, I mean,
There's many different ways to, like I said, you could have lot 2 in there, he could pay a fair share if we do it by area. If it's by frontage, his share is very small. If it's by area, he has a huge cost for little benefit. Again, he doesn't necessarily need this infrastructure. So we'd really need to see the ins and outs of that, and that's usually handled through an engineering assessment of what that assessment looks like, what the boundaries are, what the costs are. That's usually the first step of a special assessment. So without knowing which costs they're participating in, is it an urban section, a rural section? We talked a lot about that too. It's hard to agree. We're generally agreeable to an assessment, just depending on what that boundary looks like and what the costs are.
We did have a lot of discussion about this because an urban section is a really expensive road to put in this area, and do we really need that here? Is it something that we could get by with something that looks more like a county section with, can we get ditches in here and have it a paved surface so that the cost is a lot more reduced, but yet the access is there with the hard surface? When we met last week, we did hammer out a bunch of different options on how we could improve on the roadway, how we could look at getting it paid for. In previous discussions, when we were looking at putting the project in for that whole length, the price is always a big hang-up, especially if we talk about special assessments.
so, I mean, if 21st Avenue East is no longer gonna go through, why don't we give it to them and make it a private drive and just take an easement for utilities?
I think that would be able to be looked at, but we would have to do it with another process.
Good. My biggest,
Outside this
I mean, we have a lot of these where we've allowed buildings to get built, and then we've got roads that never get finished, and then nobody wants to
End up-
pay later. I mean, there's a half a dozen we've talked about in the last 6 months of these same situations.
So we just vacate that, you're saying, and
I mean, if we're not gonna go all the way through to East Villard Street, I don't know what we need a little piece of road there for. Just make
and at what point do we vacate it? Is it from lot 1, or is it from,
I don't know. I mean, we're gonna end up paying for it if we let this happen. Are we willing to pay for it? That's my question.
Well, and that was some of our discussion also, because we were willing to pay for it at one point, but things have changed. Now we're looking at a road that doesn't make any kind of connection for us. Doesn't make sense for the city to invest in that, in something that's a cul-de-sac. Do we look at having a connective route that we put our funds into, maybe to the east or to the west? Is that the roadway that we look at improving if we want to put money towards a connective route? It just was, there's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of bits and pieces to work out as far as that question that doesn't necessarily happen in a timely manner. And so staff is still working on discussing different options. We like to have your feedback. We just didn't want to tie up this plat and this project while we work through those.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schrank.
As Loretta was saying, a lot of these issues are outside of this property. It's the right-of-way that's there today. So holding up this plat doesn't really solve any issues. It actually makes more because we still have additional right-of-way to try to figure out. So I think, as Loretta said, we can still work with staff and try to come to some solutions on what 21st Avenue is and how that's paid for, but there's more parties that need to come to the table on that road than just this developer. So I think those are additional discussions that need to be happening in addition to this plat or after this plat's approved, not directly tied to this plat.
So where does our water and sewer come to now?
There is an existing sanitary sewer on the west side of the property, so they would have a public sewer main directly adjacent or within their west side of their property they could connect to. Water is within East Villard Street, and it's also within the business loop. There is no public water through the right-of-way or adjacent to these yet.
So there's nothing in 21st Avenue right now.
Correct. As part of our agreement, you'll notice we have a 20-foot water easement on the west side of Lot 2, and then it curves and heads into the 21st Avenue East right-of-way between Lot 1 and 2. In the development agreement, this owner has agreed to put that line in. They'll need it for for fire hydrants and things like that to serve this property. So there would be water into the 21st Avenue East right-of-way. After that point, that water main only serves adjacent development. They wouldn't need it. So to make them pay for that doesn't seem logical as part of this development.
Okay. Stated my concerns, I guess. What's everybody else think?
Mr. Chairman, is there precedent for vacating 21st and turning it over to the private sector?
Mr. President, that process is defined in North Dakota Century Code. It's a petition that needs to be submitted by all adjoining property owners, and then it's heard at public hearings, and if it's vacated, half of each side of the right-of-way goes to the adjoining lots. We're kind of combining that process with our replat here through this application.
It was advertised that way. That's all.
I think you're referring to this stuff north, though, right?
North.
Delta
Yep,
City.
yep, north.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If that was to go private, we'd have to go through
Okay.
a process. It
We'd have
doesn't
to-
change that at all.
And we'd have to include lots 1 through 5 in that process.
I'm trying to think, Commissioner, if there is any precedence for that. That was your question. I know we've done numerous vacations throughout the city, but I'm not sure if we've done something quite in this way. Usually the property owners are coming forward to look for that. So to present it to them
Sure.
might be the difference.
Everybody understands where I'm coming from. This is exactly like Dickinson Ready Mix. We have a road dedicated that runs into a train track that's never been paved. And now this is going to be similar. It doesn't run into a train track, but it's not going to go through anymore.
Correct.
But we've allowed buildings to be built.
Completely understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Frederick.
I mean, so that's where I keep going back to. If we don't come to some sort of agreement on how this is going to happen now, it's going to be the city's issue in the future and on our dime.
I think the hard part in our discussions is that we had already gotten to discussions where it's on our dime, as it was listed as a capital improvement project. And with vacating it, then that changes, vacating a portion of it, does that change our view? Because now it's a road that's not going through. And then is it the right way to go about it by asking one property owner to foot the expense for the whole roadway? And that's where we had lots of discussion about lots of different options on how we could move forward and what this could look like. And it's also part of what spurred some discussion about, can we look at doing some cost share on these projects? You know, what way do we move forward when we're asking for these to get finished? Is it a special assessment that shares that cost? Is it a portion of the cost that gets special assessed? How do we look at that moving forward? So it's not necessarily that this goes away in staff's eyes, it just changes from, at least I think staff's feeling is, it changes from us footing the whole bill to looking at some other options on how do we get this done without being it completely the city's burden.
And I understand that, but if we don't do that prior to this plat being approved, one of these two landowners, or maybe there's three, I don't know exactly, but is gonna protest it out, and then there's no special assessment possibility then.
Understood.
Mr. President, again, if I may, I mean, that issue will be there whether this plat's approved or not. If that assessment gets voted out, it's the same issue with more right-of-way. That's what we're saying. I think moving forward with that special assessment, I think is a great option. I think once this is approved, perhaps the city looks at starting that process to evaluate the costs, look at what that boundary might look like, and start that process of getting this road paved, getting the water in, getting the sewer in the remaining development. You know, I think this developer's putting a lot of infrastructure in for water. He agreed to grade and gravel those roads. That's going to help those costs. But to tie that infrastructure to this development and hold this development up for an issue that's there today, we don't feel is right. And it's quite honestly going to probably push this future agricultural facility to another community. They can't wait any longer to get started on that facility, and they are already starting to talk about looking at other areas.
Jason, is it the access from Lot 2 onto that 21st Avenue East that you're most concerned about?
No, I'm most
On that gravel?
I'm most concerned about how 21st Avenue East from the cul-de-sac north is gonna get finished.
What happens?
We have tons of issues with that right now, every year. Mud hole that we're grading and bringing in gravel and rock, and every year we're over there working on that. I know for a fact.
I don't disagree with that.
Now we're gonna put another big facility in there with I don't know how many employees that'll probably use that as an access.
Do we gain anything by not allowing them access to 21st? Or is that a possibility? Or does that make a worse situation?
I don't want to speak for the owner. I think as far as Lot 2 is concerned, we would, excuse me, I would assume they would be agreeable to stating that no access would be granted from 21st Avenue East until such time that road is paved. If that's a concern that they're going to be driving trucks and access through there, they don't need that access for Lot 2. So if we want to restrict that access until that road is paved, I would think the owner would be agreeable to that.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Neil Messer. I am currently one of the partners in this tract that's in front of you this morning. And I just want to go back and give you a little history on this project before we move forward. We've owned this project for years, probably decades, and we have worked through probably 5 engineering staffs with the city trying to figure out how to make something happen in this area. It's vacant land, it's not doing us any good, it's certainly not doing the city any good to make something happen. Every time we made a proposal, either the costs got out of line or the difficulty with the existing businesses that were on the north end of this, trying to reach some kind of a development settlement wouldn't work. So about 6 or 7 months ago, we started working with a company out of Utah that makes agricultural foods. They're kind of a specialty item. Their market has expanded tremendously up into the upper Midwest. They market now currently into Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, North Dakota. They could take this facility anywhere. They picked this site because it best fit their needs. This is a 40,000 square foot facility that's going to cost about $4.5 million to build, plus all the equipment that will be in it. To address a couple of the issues that Commissioner Frederick brought up, I agree that it's an issue. However, it's an issue that's not on our property. And 100% they want to go in and out from the south. They want their trucks to come in, grab East Villard so that they can get out to interstate and get their products distributed. Same way with the employees, especially now with 10th Avenue East and Highway 10 being developed where you have a stoplight there. Their employees can come in and out for that. I think we have no control over the remaining issue or the remaining length on 21st Avenue East. And so what you dictate, this facility can operate and function without using that. Would some people, or customers, those kind of things, their customers don't come to the plant, okay? But could somebody come across the property or that front of Midwest Doors gain access to this? Potentially, yes, but everything's going to be hard surfaced from the south. It's being hard surfaced from East Villard all the way to the facility and to include all the requirements as far as the parking lot. Like I said, this facility could locate anywhere. I'm not trying to hold you hostage. I'm just saying we shouldn't, as a community, hold these individuals, this company, hostage either and push them down the road. And I think whatever you work out on 21st Avenue for that remaining, how many feet it is fine. But I'm just saying we certainly would appreciate your support in moving this project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. Does the owner of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, is he here? Have any comments? So if we looked at vacating that, would you be interested in making it a private road? The stuff to the north.
We don't have any control of that. It's not adjacent to our property.
I mean, it's still giving you access.
Well, I suppose we'd have to have a conversation with the other 6 or 7 lots that are left. But this facility can totally function 100% access from the south.
Is there any reason they need access from the north? For emergency vehicles?
There was some issue with emergency vehicles, I think was part of the conversation.
That is exactly why staff requested the cul-de-sac, was for emergency access. So there was additional ways to access the facility because of the size. It was not something that the property owner requested. In fact, their initial submittals did not include any kind of connection to 21st.
Mr.
From the
President,
north.
a big reason that right-of-way is still there is the Century Code that I referred to. We can't vacate the right-of-way along lots 4 and 5 without bringing them into this plat, getting their signature, and it complicates plats when we do that. It ties another developer in there that can hold a signature hostage or whatever if they don't get exactly what they want. So that is a large reason that right-of-way wasn't vacated as part of this as well. Going to a private road could be an option, but it could be very complicated. We have a lot of existing landowners along here that would have to come to some terms of what that road looks like, what the maintenance is gonna be, probably create an HOA to pay for future pavement, future chip seals, maintenance, snow plowing, all those items, and that's a lot of parties to bring together to come to an agreement on a private road that serves existing development could be a challenge. But if they can all get on the same term, that may be an option.
Just so everybody understands, I'm 100% in favor of getting this deal done. I'm just trying to figure out why we want to continue to cause these dead-end issues like we've talked about we don't want to do anymore. And if we don't hold anybody's feet to the fire at these stages, then we just have to, are we going to pay for them? Is everybody okay with the city paying for it? And putting it all on the taxpayers to pay for this road that just benefits this little bit of an area? This is not an arterial, this is not a collector, this is just a stretch of road that when the stuff north developed, we didn't hold anybody's feet to the fire like we would normally do, and now we're going to let the stuff south develop without holding anybody's feet to the fire. So is the city okay with us putting in the sewer and water and paving this on our dime?
Well, I think the difference in this instance is that the developer is vacating the right-of-way. If we were moving forward and they were developing on each side of that right-of-way, staff definitely would have said, you need to build the road. I think we're doing that as we move forward with new development. We're making developers do that. And in this instance, what works for them is to vacate it. So we don't have those discussions, but it makes it really difficult for us, even as staff, to request that they build the road to the north, because there's no reason for them, they don't need that access. So we don't really have anything to hold over them like we would in other instances where they need the access.
Who owns Lot 1? Mr. Messer, do you own Lot 1?
That's Midwest Doors. No? To the east, or you said?
Lot 1 in the new plat.
Yes.
Oh,
We would still own it. We're
Steve Schwab and Neil Messer.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that this is the time, if we're going to do this with special assessments with them on board, it's going to be awfully hard to protest when you've got this big chunk of land consisting of probably most of the acreage there. Is it not?
We had that discussion. It would be our wish, we have no plans to develop that. It's our wish that this would end up becoming part of the facility that's being developed here. We understand we still own it under the existing proposal. We have no plan. So in order to develop it, we could flip it the other way too. We could only sell this company that lot and retain, because they just kind of targeted 8 acres. We could retain the southern portion of this, but we just felt in the most orderly development way, we would move forward under the plan that you have in front of you.
All right. Commissioners, any more questions or concerns for staff? Or the owners? What are your wishes? I guess this is a public hearing, right, first?
It is.
All right, we will now open the public hearing on this final plat request for FLP-009-2021. Anybody in the audience have any comments or concerns regarding this final plat, please come to the podium and state your name, or you can call into 701-456-7006.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Once again, anybody in the public have any comments or concerns regarding this final plat, please come forward. Seeing or hearing none, we will close the public hearing portion. And commissioners, what are your wishes?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Boinder.
What is our option if would we be able to restrict access to the south? And then what is our option for the future for finishing that road? Would it be held up until we have an agreement as to who's going to pay for it? And can we restrict access?
I think we could restrict access. The applicant doesn't need it to function.
Right.
The request for the cul-de-sac was for emergency services. I think that's something that could be included in the development agreement or shown on the plat.
Mhm.
Mr. Schrank.
Mr. President, if that is a concern of the commission, the owner would be willing to, excuse me, in the development agreement state that no access would be provided into Lot 2 from the existing 21st Avenue East right-of-way until such time that that road is paved or built to city standards, whatever that may be. We could do that through the development agreement, I believe, if that's something that would help move this forward and alleviate some of the commission's concerns.
I mean, so let's say we've got this project moved up on the list next summer. I mean, is Lot 2, are the owners of Lot 2 and 1 willing to participate in finishing that road?
Again, yes, but we don't know what that looks like. We need to know.
I mean, what kind of
My recommendation would be that you guys move forward with an engineering assessment of that special assessment district. That's the first step in a special assessment district is you look at the existing infrastructure, you figure out what needs to be constructed, you put engineers' estimates of cost together, you set the district boundary lines, and you show what each owner could be participating. And that's something you can take to these owners and say, your share is 30,000, your share is 50,000, you're gonna get water, sewer, streets, and it's something that they can make an informed decision. At this point, we don't have enough information to commit to that assessment. It could be a $300,000 assessment to Lot 2, which they probably wouldn't be okay with. But if it's a realistic assessment, they would be agreeable to that assessment. But there's many other parties that are involved in that as well, and there is a payback. You know, the city's not footing that bill other than initially. It's not tied to development or anything. Whatever you set the terms of that assessment, you would recoup that money. If it's a 10-year assessment, you're going to recoup that money in 10 years. So yes, the city's taking on that debt initially, but the taxpayers are getting that money returned over time.
Mr. Schrank, would you also include no access to the main facility, the main Lot 1, from 21st toward the business loop? Is that something that's on the table?
I think if it moves this facility forward, the owner would be agreeable. That's a little scary for Lot 1, but I think if it moves Lot 2 forward and keeps this moving, you know, if that special assessment does get voted down, Lot 1 could be this undevelopable piece of property. Maybe at that time they would have to just combine it with the rest of the development. But I think the main concern here is to get this Lot 2 platted so we can move this facility forward. So I think they would be okay with that if that's the commission's desires.
I have a concern on restricting access. We can say that or do that, but how do we enforce that?
We don't.
Really, it's for development, it would be, we wouldn't entertain any building on that particular lot. So, I mean, it would be basically tied to that. It doesn't mean that the owner couldn't drive down 21st and pull off into that lot, you know, today or 6 months from now. I'd maybe ask Attorney Wenko to weigh in because that is a publicly dedicated right-of-way, even though it wasn't improved. During the entitlement process, I believe through the county, that was probably done. That's why the road's out there, because we or someone didn't require those improvements to be put in. So now then restricting access on a public right-of-way might get a little little bit problematic for all of us. So I do agree. I think we can probably say that it's not buildable until those improvements are put in. But Ms. Wenko, would you maybe jump in on that?
Yes, Mr. Hadley, I guess I would agree with you on that assessment. I think it's going to be a little problematic trying to do it. Could it be done? I suppose. But again, enforcing that I think is going to be a bigger concern. You know, I hesitate to do something and do it knowing that the teeth in doing it is not going to be there. So obviously, if that's the intent, we want to make sure that we have the ability to back that up. So long story short, it could be done. I don't know if it would be practical.
Couldn't you just restrict the lot 2 if you're restricting? Instead of restricting to the whole flat, to just do it to the lot 2?
Mr. President, if it did help too, I think the owner would be willing to put up barricades or road closed or something there too to help delineate that is not through, something fairly minimal cost that would help differentiate that there is no access, if it helped.
So, Mr. Hadley or Ms. Marshak, if we deny this and that everything stays the same, what are we going to be on the line for the cost of 21st and completion? I know it's nothing on our agenda anyway, but give us both scenarios, if we do or if we don't. Is it going to cost us either way?
If you don't approve this plat, as Mr. Schrank alluded to, it would wind up going back to the same type of project that we looked at on the CIP, which would be the full road, the full sewer and water improvement, which obviously is a much larger cost because I think Mr. Schrank said it was about half, which is about half of the roadway.
That we would pay, the city would be,
Well, we'd have to be involved in a special assessment or some sort of a
Sure.
project to improve that, yes.
but then again, it's benefiting significantly more people if it's a thoroughfare or going through, correct?
I don't know, as the chairman said, it's not a collector or arterial, it's not something that's providing major access
Right.
to any other portions of the city. It would just be a connector between the business loop and East Bloor.
Which is why it's really not on our foreseeable agenda, correct?
I believe,
I believe-
I'd have to estimate that's one.
It's not a high priority, basically, is what it
wasn't
comes
the
down
highest
to.
priority.
Mr. Chairman, when we talk about specials, it would be specials put on to this particular project's or owners, not the whole city.
No, it would be just this area, I mean, but we've never worked those numbers or how that would go, if it's by frontage or area or, again.
And I think that's what Mr. Schrank is alluding to when he says that they don't know what these costs are going to entail. Because if we look at this district as a by area, you know that Lot 2 is quite sizable, and so they would potentially be looking at a larger share of the portion of that cost. If you go by frontage, their frontage for that lot is quite small. And so in that instance, you know, maybe they'd be willing to participate. It also depends on what type of roadway we put in there. How important is it to us, if we're improving the roadway, that we put an urban section with curb and gutter? Is it something that fits the location better to just have a paved surface and maybe we handle stormwater with ditches?
Well, then,
That reduces the cost and maybe would be more palatable to all the property owners. There's lots of nuances to looking at how we would move forward and what those cost differences are and how we get buy-in from the property owners.
They don't need the water and sewer, so it'd be hard for them to special assess them for something they don't need.
Just the way
So it would be the
that's-
paving. Basically, it would be down to the paving.
Well, just the way it's written, we can assess that and they can't protest it out. But you're right, some of these buildings are already in existence. They're getting their utilities in a different manner. Otherwise, it would be already installed in the roadway. So the only ones that it leaves out are the undeveloped lots. If that's the way they would need to get those services, we'd have to look at installing those before we put the hard surface.
So the water and sewer really would only benefit probably lots 3, 4, and 5 in the
Probably.
future.
Those undeveloped lots.
On the old plat. So we'd be mostly looking at paving.
And that would be an argument I could foresee if we look at putting in utilities. I think the property owners that aren't needing them aren't going to want them. They aren't going to want to participate in that cost. So, maybe that is, something we look at is we just look at paving. And we have some other ideas of how we handle future services if those lots develop.
Mr. Schrank.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was just going to mention, there is a benefit for water from some of the other developments as well. Currently, there's no fire hydrants through this area, so a lot of those would need fire hydrants if they were constructed today to meet the radii for fire protection.
Thank you.
Fortunately, this is one of those that we are just hooked on. I don't believe that this plat created the issue. Obviously, we'll agree the issue's been there for quite some time. And I don't think it's going to fix itself. There's going to be discussions down the road, but that road is going to have to be handled, I believe, separately from this plat. With that said, I will make a motion. I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of FLP 009-2021 for the proposed Fisher's Third East City Edition preliminary final plat as depicted in attachment A, the conditions of approval, meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code, comprehensive plan, and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, let's move on. Our next. Item 2 on our action items today would be the zoning text amendment, TAM-004-2021. Stevenson Funeral Home is requesting a proposed amendment to the City of Dickinson Municipal Code, Article 39.02, definitions, Article 39.03, use types, and Table 4-2, zoning district regulations in Article 39.04, zoning district regulations regarding allowing a columbarium as a special use. Mr. Hadley, or Mr. Josephson, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Friedrich. Good morning, Commissioner Steve Josephson. This is a proposed amendment to Article 39, Chapter 39, the zoning ordinance, and this was initiated by Stevenson Funeral Home. The applicant wishes to place an outdoor columbarium on their site. Don't know where this feedback's coming from, but they wish to place one on their site. They have been meeting with city staff to discuss a proposed amendment, and as you can recall, they did give a presentation at last month's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to explain what they wish to do. Apparently, this is a trend among funeral homes and similar services And as you know, a columbarium is a place where, you know, when people have been cremated, the jars are placed in it, and, you know, people can they can do the visitations at that. Just to go through what the applicant is proposing, and then after that, the applicant's representative can come up for more explanation. They have submitted they've submitted a code amendment that would include a definition of a columbarium, and then there are also under section 39.03 in terms of uses, they list a number of criteria that would be followed for a columbarium. Currently in the code, a columbarium is allowed if it's associated with a funeral, with a cemetery. What they are proposing is that indoor and outdoor columbarium may be included in a cemetery when operated in conjunction with and within the boundaries of such cemetery. Indoor and outdoor columbaria may be allowed in conjunction with a religious assembly through the approval of a special use permit by City Commission. And outdoor columbaria may be allowed in conjunction with a funeral service through the approval of a special use permit by City Commission. The columbaria may be established subject to the following requirements set below. The outdoor columbaria structure shall meet the setback and yard requirements of the R3 zoning district. They shall be no more than 8 feet in height. They shall be consistent in material and design with the, hang on a second. Signage will be limited to inscriptions on the face of the columbaria niche or a commemorative plaque on the columbarium structure. The plaques may be no larger than 12 inches by 12 inches. Any left items, such as flowers and memento, are permitted but must be monitored by the governing body of the Columbarium Association and removed within 7 days of placement. An outdoor columbarium may not be permitted within 300 feet of a cocktail lounge or a liquor store. During discussions with staff, the issue came up of what if this is moved sometime in the future? So staff is also proposing that one of the conditions for approval would be that a bond to cover the cost of moving in either an indoor or outdoor columbarium at some time in the future shall be posted by the applicant as part of the entitlement process. Staff has reviewed this. We've met with them on more than one occasion. Staff does recommend approval, and I will let the applicant's representative come up and give a presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Morning, President and Commission. Kenzie Robertson with Highlands Engineering. Here representing Stevenson Funeral Home. Nick Stevenson was unable to attend this morning. As Mr. Josephson had mentioned, we presented to you guys at the last meeting just kind of the needs and trends for these types of products in other communities. Just kind of wanted to touch on a couple things in the zoning text. First of all, the two things that would mainly be added would be indoor and outdoor options to columbarium in a religious assembly, and then the outdoor columbarium in a funeral service setting. Like he said, we'd had discussions with staff, kind of came to an agreement on the different aspects of this. Now that you guys have had the opportunity to read through all of the proposed amendments, I just up here to see if you guys had any questions or concerns, comments.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Robertson?
Nope.
We've got it pretty well figured out. Why can't it be within 300 feet of a liquor store? That was the only question I had. Is that some kind of state thing, or is that just,
No, that was just one of the things that was brought up by staff. As there's no real need for it. It's just a concern that the staff had.
Okay.
Part of privacy and just respect thing.
Okay. Commissioners, any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you.
All right, I believe this is also a public hearing, so we will now open the public hearing. Anyone in the public have any comments or concerns regarding the zoning text amendments regarding columbariums? Please come forward or call into 456-7006.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone in the public or online have any questions or concerns regarding the zoning text amendment? Seeing or hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Mr. Chair, I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of TAM 004-2021, the Stevenson Funeral Home petition to amend the City of Dickinson Municipal Code, Article 39.02, definitions, Article 39.03, use types, and Table 4-2 zoning district regulations. In Article 39.04, zoning district regulations regarding allowing a columbarium as a special use as being compliant and consistent with the City of Dickinson Comprehensive Plan, as well as being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dukar with the second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item would be item 4 on our agenda is public issues of concern not on the agenda. If anybody in the public or online has any issues they'd like to bring forward to discuss, this would be the time. Once again, you can call into 456-7006. Oops, I dialed the wrong number.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone in the public or online have any comments of public concern that was not on our agenda today? Seeing or hearing none, we will close that portion of our agenda and move on to item 5. This is an ETZ update. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you see a map, the committee working on the ETZ boundary met and discussed the boundary, and I believe this is going to be the boundary we move forward with. Just wanted to give you an update on that. Stephen also put together a facts list and questions, which commonly asked questions on ETZ. I believe that's in your packet. If not, I also have copies in there.
Yeah, I think it's in here.
So it's a draft copy. We're going to take that to that committee and go over this and see if there's anything else that we need to include. If there isn't, then I feel that we're on the home stretch as far as moving forward and having an agreement. The thing that stands out is basically we're taking 29 square miles. We could take about 90. We've worked through the whole process and picked out areas that had development potential for the city, that it would benefit and also impact the city. And we excluded a lot of them, a lot of the areas that didn't. So I think between that and the complementary zoning that we're looking to do for what the zone is in the county versus as it's transitioned into the city zoning, we want to keep the agricultural people agricultural. We want to keep the residential people residential, the industrial people industrial. We're not planning on changing anything in that. From the city standpoint, we really want to have this be a pretty seamless transition that really doesn't affect the folks, except for who they talk to for land use entitlement. And that really is what it comes down to. So with that, I just wanted to give you a quick update on that's where we are. We haven't set up another meeting yet. I've asked Sylvia to look at dates, and we'll get together as a group again. Of course, this time of year isn't quite as easy to set up meetings just at the spur of the moment, but we will get something moving forward and then move down the road of doing an ordinance. I believe Ms. Winko is working on an ordinance for ETZ, and we're already done. She's very efficient. She probably was doing it as I was talking. And anyway, we'll move on from there. If there are any questions from the group, or comments or concerns?
What's the next steps? Take it to the smaller committee and then to the city commission?
We'll bring it to yourself. We'll go to that group, and then it'll come to the planning commission,
The final?
city commission, and then the county commission. We'll also have to go through their process as well. I think Dean's on board, understands, and I think they're kind of waiting for us, I guess.
Right.
Any questions or concerns? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Item 2 on our not on the agenda for today, our new P&Z members for 2022, Mr. Hadley and Christina Winko.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank you all for your service on the Planning Commission. I appreciate that. The community appreciates that. It's not an easy job, as we know, sitting here and going through all these issues and problems and political issues and development issues and everything else. I think the community does appreciate you greatly. For the couple of commissioners that are not going to re-enlist, if you will, onto the commission for the following terms, I thank you greatly with your time and effort and the effort you put in here. We will be faced, though, with replacing you. And what we'll need, and I did mention it to the mayor, that between Mr. Winningham and the mayor and Jason and the Planning Commission, I think what we need to do is also look at some replacements that represent the ETZ. Based on the ETZ expansion, I think we need to focus on that, so maybe working with Dean as well. If there's some suggestions, I think we've done in the past where the county has had some suggestions on replacements, maybe you working with the mayor and Mr. Winningham on who those might be, because then the city commission would have to appoint those replacements. So I believe that's where we are. Christina, Ms. Winko, please correct me if I'm wrong. And but once again, thank you all again, and thank you for those that are leaving. Thank you very much for your time.
Who's not coming back?
I'm not.
Brad?
You have to raise their hands.
Actually, I think I've been under the city umbrella for about 20-plus years now. I think it's time to move on to another project. I've enjoyed all of it, actually, all of it.
Or are we going to try to have somebody in place for the January meeting? Is that our intended goal, or?
That would be the ultimate goal, yes. I'm going to see who we have and then leave that up to the county, the mayor and Mr. Winningham to bring a couple of names forward for replacement at one of the city commission meetings, hopefully the first one in January.
I have a recommendation too, then I'll discuss with you, and she's accepted if she gets approved by you. Good fit for our community.
With Brad, he was representing actually the ETZ zone. Are you expanding that to another member or just the one for the ETZ?
No, I believe we at least have to have two, and it might be three. So we transition into three, and I'm not quite sure if you count as one of those. So Ms. Winko and I will have to have a conversation on if that would meet the intent.
So this board will expand in number with the ETZ?
It's very likely, yes. So we're going to work through those details and bring forward those recommendations. Obviously, the purpose is to have a representative demographic, not only from city, but from the ETZ, considering we are doing the expansion. So I think what the proposal will be is Mr. Hadley and I will present, obviously, that information, and then as far as what the county may do, I don't know if the county's going to want to present that at a county meeting and bring forward names or vote on recommendations or not. Obviously, the county meeting has already occurred, unless you have 2 a month. I don't believe you do. So if that's going to happen, it probably won't be until January that that recommendation comes forward, unless it comes forward in a less formal setting, I would suppose, but very possible.
Here we go. If anybody in the public is looking to serve, this would be the time to contact staff and get your name in. I think on our website, there's a...
There is.
If you're interested in serving in any of our boards, you can fill that out and get it turned into staff. And we will see how that works out and try to get these replacements. And just want to thank Brad and Shirley for all your guys' time over the last...
Thank you.
Brad, I mean, Shirley's been here forever, so...
You don't always make friends. I want to know that.
So, all right. With that, anything else? We have nothing on our work session today, so our last item would be adjournment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dukart. Second by Commissioner Bullinger. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.